Oi boss, I just crossed the Rubok on Primaris. I got me some Transork physiology. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I just wanted to share a few thoughts on the Snagga Boyz release, and in particular the parallels between these and Primaris Space Marines. I made a video when Games Workshop first showed us the picture of them. I mentioned a little bit of the similarities between the two releases in that video itself, and every second comment on it also voiced similar reactions. In this video I just wanted to talk about the weird place where these might be sitting, with the models themselves, the tabletop game, and the lore they're trying to represent. So firstly, just as a bit of a disclaimer, I will say that I do quite like the models, a thoroughly savage looking orc, and it's nice to see them getting so much more attention from Games Workshop, particularly as we know that quite a few more models are on the way. I have seen some people criticise it a bit, saying it looks a bit too Age of Sigmar-like, and maybe not following close enough to the orcs that are established in Warhammer 40k, but to be honest, for the awesome new sculpts, I think I'm willing to overlook that, and it's going to be fun to see what else they do with this Snagga range as it comes out. Despite that, I do have some slightly conflicted feelings about the release. While we're just seeing new units that are directly being added into the Orc army, such as those Squighog Riders, it's kind of hard for people to criticise Games Workshop too much, but by releasing these ones, they're sort of strangely similar to the current Boyz, and I think it just makes them feel a bit more controversial, and maybe perhaps a little bit more mixed reception. I think it's not too hard to see why people are calling these Primaris Orcs. If you just compare him to the Chopper Boy that you can see up above, they're almost essentially the same model, just like the Primaris compared with the Firstborn Space Marines, bigger and more imposing, and maybe some of the details looking a bit sleeker and crisper. I'm not saying that the rest of their Boyz mob might not have differences, say having special weapons within the unit, or maybe having different unit sizes. So far we have only seen one model. To double down on that sentiment, we know that the stat line is already going to be inflated beyond the normal Boyz, so these are indeed bigger, badder Boyz, and though I'm sure they'll cost a few more points, per model they will be more dangerous. It says that they hit as hard as an Orc Nob, so it will be at least strength 5, and they were a little bit coy as to the durability of them. They might well be tougher than Boyz, but not as hard to kill as Nobs. I guess it'll depend on if they make any changes to the stat line in the new Orcs Codex. I think that how you're going to be able to field them in a list really is going to make a big difference as to whether or not they're truly sort of a bigger, better Boyz replacement. I think there'll be a massive difference if they're an unrestricted troops choice compared with if they're either an elites choice or one that has further restrictions, like only being able to take so many units of them. If they are an unrestricted troops choice, then it means that every orc list will have to weigh up these guys versus your standard Boyz, which might mean that both of them are forced into certain battlefield roles, where one's better for being shock assault troops and one better for holding objectives perhaps. Or if Games Workshop doesn't balance them very well, then either the old Boyz or the new might just be flat stronger. On the other hand, if they are a restricted elites choice, they'd have a similar sort of feel to other specialists, such as tank busters, which is kind of how I'd imagine them in the lore at the moment, as a slightly oddball subculture that while you might have quite a lot of them in any given tribe, they're not likely to be filling out your troops choices unless you're just using an entire army of beast snaggers. Either way, it feels like it's just a bit of a strange move to be releasing a unit that's almost the same in appearance as the old unit, just a bit bigger and better. It does kind of feel like Games Workshop is trying to crowbar in an extra redundant choice, so a lot of Orc players flock out to buy the new ones rather than sticking with their own Boyz, as if they'd just updated the Boyz kit. Honestly, I'm not sure whether this is really better or worse for Orc players though. If they'd just updated the Boyz kit, that might not have been great for a lot of the people who are collecting Orcs at the moment. They might just look a bit overshadowed when they come up against these Boyz when you're playing against another Orc army. I feel like some players might have preferred them to upgrade the standard Orc kit, where other people will be actually quite glad to have a different option in the Orc troop slot. Perhaps the small thing that really bothers me the most about these though is perhaps the lore and naming of the models compared with what they could have called them. The thing is, having slightly bigger savage orcs really is quite a common thing in the background. Orcs grow bigger, more dangerous and more brutal the more violence they're exposed to, and as the lives of feral and savage orcs are perhaps even more brutal than the standard orc lives, they can be known to be bigger than the orcs that rely more on technology and fancy things, rather than just braining your enemies with a stone club or something. There's also the precedent for Scar Boys as well, who can already get strength 5 currently in the Orc Codex, and they're kind of a similar deal in the way they've been exposed to a lot of violence through a lot of campaigns, so are physically bigger and stronger. I just feel that by calling them Snagga Boys, as opposed to just feral or savage orcs, or a name somewhere along those lines, just feels a bit strange. By calling them beast snaggers, I sort of feel like you make them feel a lot more like a small orc subculture than something that's all over the galaxy. I could imagine a lot of orc warbands having a big contingent of feral orcs in, perhaps, but it's just hard to imagine that beast snaggers will be quite as prevalent, say on any orcs that are more based on hive worlds, or just anywhere that doesn't have megafauna for them to trap and breed. I just find it kind of strange that we might have to call the standard orc rank and file beast snaggers, as opposed to just feral or savage orcs. To be honest though, I fully admit I might be making too much of a big deal out of that. Maybe it's best just not to focus on Games Workshop's fancy copyrightable names, and just accept that the orcs are getting a few nice feral orc sculpts, even if they are all branded a certain way. In any case, for making the factions stronger and more depth, having more options is likely to be a good thing for orc army lists, or even just orc players who are looking to build an orc army and might now have the choice of different models to field as their rank and file. I'll most certainly be looking forward to the rest of the releases and rules for the Beast Snagga releases and seeing what they can do for the Orc Codex. So let me know what you think of this perhaps slightly strange release down in the comments below. Will people warm up to these guys in the way that a lot of the community really have embraced the Primaris Marines? Or do you wish they'd just gone ahead and revamped the Boyz kit rather than going down the slightly niche Beast Snagga angle? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the 40k discussion content and tactics stuff coming each and every day. Finally, if you are enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention one way that you can help support and keep them coming, which is the Auspex Tactics Patreon page. Making all the videos does take a fair amount of time, and if you are enjoying regularly, any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, such as seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry to the monthly prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.